Hello everyone, I will be speaking about the fibulae from the archaic sanctuary on the Spotico. The presentation will go as follows. First, a very short introduction on the topography and excavation history of the site, a summary of the sanctuary, its buildings, main finds, and the deities worshipped. Then we will continue with our main part, the presentation of the fibulae and their typology. And last, we will associate them with their find spots, and we will close by attempting to draw some preliminary conclusions on their function at the sanctuary. The island of the Spotico lies in the middle of the Aegean, to the southwest of Paros and Antiparos. The sanctuary, although one of the most important cultic centers of the Cyclades, is unattested in ancient texts. It is positioned in the northeast of the island, at a point where it was connected with the neighboring islet Tsimidiri during the antiquity. The first limited excavations were conducted in 1959 by Nicholas Zafiropoulos. However, the sanctuary was only discovered in 1997 by the rescue excavations of the F48 of Antiquities of Cyclades under the direction of Yanos Kouragios. Since 2001, he directs the systematic archaeological exploration of the site, which is still ongoing, having uncovered 22 buildings and also leading an international team preparing the sanctuary's publication. I wish to thank him from this position for entrusting me with the study of the metal finds. Let's now move to the sanctuary. The excavation has revealed three complexes, the so-called north one or Temenos, the east complex, and the south complex. Since most of our material derived from the Temenos, we will focus there. The origins of the cult activity can be traced back to the mid-9th century BC. Two successive geometric buildings have been excavated, Building Omicron and Building Xi. The second one has the exact alignment with the later Building Alpha, the primary cult building during the Archaic era, so we can consider Building Xi as an early cult building. Building Delta to the north and Building Epsilon to the east were included in the sanctuary spatial planning in the 6th century and served various cult activities. In the center of the Temenos, there was the altar. On your screen you can see what it would look like during the Archaic period when cult flourished. Cult continued through classical and Hellenistic times, though not as intensively as in the previous centuries. By late antiquity, the sanctuary had been abandoned. The primary deity was Apollo, as suggested by numerous inscribed sherds. An inscribed marble altar slab also testifies Estia Isthmia, while the two-part plan of the sanctuary and female statue fragments suggest that Artemis was probably also venerated. Finds include a large variety and quantity of objects, such as a series of kuroi and korai and statue vases, figurines, jewels, weapons, and else. The finds show that cult in the sanctuary thrived, especially during the late Archaic and early Classical periods. Among them, there are about 30 fibulae, on which we will now focus. The Despotico fibulae fall into 6 categories. There are 5 Phrygian and Phrygian imitations, 3 bow-shaped fibulae, 3 of the Attic Boeotian type, 5 insular type fibulae, 1 rare disc-shaped fibula, and 7 spectacle fibulae, while there are also many that cannot be classified under any category due to their fragmentary condition. Let us now examine them more closely one by one. The largest among the Phrygian fibulae, nearly 10 cm long, has a pair of oblong rectangular beads, alternating with smaller disc-shaped beads at its edge. This type finds parallels at Olympia, Argos, Ephesus, and Rhodes, none of which is identical with our Despotico example, as the rectangular beads of it are too oblong. This type of Phrygian fibula has a thick arch and reed beads on either side and on the top middle. Except for Asia Minor and Gordion, it has also close parallels from many sites in the Peloponnese and the islands. More problematic is the next fibula. Its incisions are reminiscent of a Sardis fibula, but its angular shape has parallels in Ephesus, though exact parallels could not be found. The next one is another challenging fibula with a thin, almost semicircular bow decorated with more than 5 clusters of distant beads. It finds relatively close parallels to Gordion and Olympia. Nonetheless, the elongated bead in the middle is reminiscent of Astragalus, and this could imply that it could be an imitation rather than a Phrygian fibula. The next one is for sure a Phrygian imitation, as implied by the bow shape. Again, it finds parallels from Gordion and Ephesus, while it is rare on the Aegean Islands. The next 3 fibulae are arch-shaped. Of interest is the third one. It has incised decoration on the bow and an X inside on its small catch plate. It finds a very close parallel to a fibula from the sanctuary at Pherae in Thessaly. This type of Attic Boeotian fibula is quite common in mainland Greece, but it also finds some parallels in the islands, such as Delos and Skyros. This is not the case with that not common fibula, which finds a non-identical parallel to Philia, again in Thessaly. The last fibula of this type preserves only its plate, on which we can discern 2 incised systems of concentric circles. These circles were quite common on fibula plates, but not that common on fibula from islands, with an exception from Aegina. We are now moving to the insular types. In the first example, the bow has 5 globules, and the middle one is elongated. The catch plate is small and triangular. Numerous examples of this type come from the Aegean Islands, and a very similar example from Paros in particular. Our second example differs only slightly, as it has a bigger trapezoid catch plate. Although fragmentary, the following example is quite remarkable. The central globule is crowned, probably by a smaller one, and to its left it's decorated. Its only close parallel can be found at Ephesus. The next fibula has a plain plate and a sizable lentoid to circular bead ornamented with globules on both sides. There is only mentioned one identical parallel coming from Kythnos, but there is no photograph published yet. The next lentoid fibula is more common, as it finds parallels in the islands such as Crete and Rhodes. Disc-shaped fibulae were extremely rare during the archaic times in the Aegean. However, this one from the Spotiko finds a good parallel in a fibula from Ialissos, Rhodes. On your screen you can now see the largest of the Spotiko fibulae. It is a bronze spiral fibula of the spectacle type formed by a single wire wound into 8 concentric spirals for each of the 2 large discs. Nearly every Greek sanctuary site has such a spiral fibula, but usually not that big. More interesting is the small 8-shaped fibula made of solid bronze, with 2 discs inside with circular bosses punched from the back. Of the same type, 5 more ivory spectacle fibulae were found, which are much more common in the Aegean. Even though their metal counterparts are relatively rare, a big assemblage of both bronze and bone fibula of that type, pretty similar to the Spotiko ones, were excavated on Kythnos. Finally, there are 2 fragments of violin-shaped fibulae, an iron and a bronze one, which probably also originate from spectacle fibulae. The vast majority of the fibulae were found in the North Complex, the Temenos. A fragment of a fibula pin was discovered in building Epsilon, dating from the mid-6th to the early 5th century BC. 8 more were found in the area of building Delta. The pottery from these deposits spans from the geometric to the archaic periods. Unfortunately, most of the fibulae found there are in fragmentary condition. The vast majority of them, 16, were found inside building Alpha, and in room Alpha 1 in particular. This is one of the 2 rooms consisting of the temple. The finds were positioned, together with most of the sanctuary's votives, under the floor's paving slabs, which can be seen here. This assemblance dates from the 7th to the 6th century BC. The pottery is mostly Parian, but imports include wares from Argos, Chios, Anatolia and Rhodes. As we have seen, the same is confirmed by the fibulae. Because of their fine spot, we shall consider them as votives, possibly gifted to the gods together with the clothes they were used to fasten. Their treatment reveals as so. They were carefully placed under the temple's new floor after they had been displayed for a certain time in the sanctuary. Unfortunately, we cannot attribute them to male or female worshippers, neither can we tell whether they were consecrated to Apollo, Artemis, or another deity, as they will not present any gender indications. With greater probability, we can speculate that they were personal offerings of both artistic and sentimental value. They were both local products and imports from the Asia Minor, other islands, and mainland Greece. In general, they follow the depositional patterns of archaic Greek sanctuaries, according to which personal, valued objects were gifted as votives regarding its deity or area. Some of the data may change, as both the excavation and the metal finds conservation are still ongoing. Since the study is also in progress, suggestions and comments are more than welcome. Thank you for your attention.